All right, it is the last and final piece of our book study of Who Moved My Cheese. So we're going to read the end of the book together today. And I want you guys to just really reflect and kind of think about what you learned from the book study, what you thought of the book. There's also a Google form that's posted with this just to kind of help you wrap up your thoughts about the whole thing. So if you didn't follow along with everybody, I encourage you to go back and watch the ones with the other teachers, the other Fiesta teachers that read the other parts of the book with you. And you know what? Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe sometimes we're just not ready to learn some of these things. So maybe you can go back a little bit later and maybe read the book all yourself, and maybe you'll get a little bit something different out of it that time. And by the way, if you hear some odd pounding in this video, we are getting new siding on the house and it's a little noisy here today, so hopefully it's not too loud and you guys can still hear me. Let me just remind you guys that we are in the pizza shop right now. So this is where that group of friends, they're in the pizza shop and they're discussing the whole Who Moved My Cheese story with Sniff and Scurry and Hem and Haw. So right now we're at the pizza shop and let's see what they have to say. Okay, so instead of dealing with the move, I just dug my heels and acted like a big baby, Carrie admitted. I blamed my parents for everything and wouldn't even answer the teacher when she called roll. I didn't know about that, Peter said. Me neither, Josh echoed. Strange. Now we can't get you to stop talking in class. Carrie kicked Josh under the table. Anyway, she said, I wished I'd let go of my old neighborhood and moved on sooner. Would have saved me a lot of hassle. Anna remarked, your cheese got moved, and when you finally dealt with it, you made a whole new group of great friends, if I do say so myself. Plus, Peter added, you've told us you're still friends with the kids in your old town, so it all turned out pretty good, right? You're totally right, Carrie answered, but I'm so embarrassed now that I acted that way. I think I owe my parents a sorry about that. Anna put down her piece of pizza and said, the story made me think of Gavin. The table went quiet. Gavin was Anna's ex-boyfriend. He had dumped her hard after a year of going out. She tried everything to get back with him, and it had taken her a long time to get over it. I've never admitted, even to myself, that we had problems from the start, Anna began. That cheese had some pretty serious mold on it, Josh interrupted, causing everyone to laugh. I was so crazy about him, Anna admitted, and about dating a popular guy, and I decided not to see anything wrong. Gavin was like Sniff. He could see problems ahead. Then, like Haw, he tried to talk to me, but I just acted like him. I didn't want to listen. Finally, he left me behind in the old cheese station while he went to homecoming with his new cheese. Sometimes, Peter said, change just happens. It's like the cheese has a life of its own, and eventually runs out. Old cheese isn't your only cheese, Carrie said. I guess you're right, Anna sighed. Old cheese is like old stuff you do all the time and don't even think about it, Melanie pointed out. Like old behavior that you need to stop. You guys are always telling me that I take myself too seriously, Peter said suddenly, and that I should stop worrying about what everyone else thinks. But if that's my old cheese, I've got to tell you, it's really hard to stop thinking that way. Maybe laughing at your fears would help, Carrie suggested. It worked for Haw. I don't feel like laughing, Peter shook his head. I want to be taken seriously as a musician. I love playing guitar, but I worry that I'm not good enough, or that I'll finally get my chance on stage and I'll totally mess up. Anna asked, remember what Melanie said about how Haw painted a picture in his mind where he saw himself enjoying a new cheese? And how that lightened everything up and got him through the maze? Pete, you could paint a picture of your new cheese too. So I should picture myself getting into a band and playing gigs, Peter asked. That's what you said you'd do if you weren't afraid of change, Chris pointed out. You're right, Peter admitted. I guess my fear of failure has kept me from being a success. That's dumb, like him hanging out in that cheese station. You should just start your own band, Melanie said. That's what Haw meant when he wrote Move with the Cheese and Savor the Adventure. If you're the one making change happen, then you're not so afraid of it. I've got an idea, Carrie said. Can we all think of something better we want and imagine our new cheese and talk about it tomorrow at lunch? Chris said, yeah, and let's see if we can get Carl involved. I know he always acts tough, but he's probably more scared than any of us. Cool, Anna said. I also want to go home and tell my dad and my sisters this story. I'd like to know which character they think they are and what our family's new cheese could be. I hope it's in the fridge or it's going to be gross, Josh joked. Just then, Melanie looked at her watch. Oh no, she said, it's getting late. I'm supposed to be home. Melanie called her mom as the other kids paid the bill. Then she left a good tip for the patient waitress. Josh stretched his arms over his head. Time to blow this cheese station, he said, yawning. Can you give me a ride through the maze? Anna asked him jokingly. Me too, Carrie said. How about you, Pete? She asked. I'm gonna walk, Peter answered. I've got some stuff to think about. The friends parted, saying goodbye, anxious to talk more about the story tomorrow and tell it to other friends. As Josh walked out the door, he stopped and gave Chris a quick bear hug, picking him up from the floor. When Josh put him back down, Chris asked, "What's that for?" Since Josh rarely showed affection. Thanks for the story, buddy, he said, grinning. Chris smiled back. No problem. He had a feeling things were about to change for his friends, at least some of them. Would Josh be ready to move on and get over the loss of his dad? Would Anna get her college plans in order? Could Peter put aside his self-doubts and perform? How about Melanie and Carrie? Could even Carl change and get into a good trade school? He was really good at mechanical things. Then Chris realized that what Carl did was up to Carl. Who would move with the cheese, Chris wondered. Whoever it was, he knew he was ready to savor the adventure right along with him. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this book. I think it's awesome. I've learned a lot from it. I hope you guys have too. And just like the kids in the story, maybe you can take this story home and kind of tell your family and your friends that didn't get to read the book and talk about it with them. You don't necessarily have to tell them what your cheese is, but you could talk about just the general concept of change, and things are constantly changing, and we got to move with it, right? It's not always going to be the same, and it's not always going to turn out the way that we want it to. But the way that we react to that is only going to help us if we react in a positive way. Okay, so I encourage you guys to fill out the Google form to help wrap up your thoughts about this book. And I encourage you to email me or any of the other teachers if there's something that you want to talk about, something that this book brought up for you. Let's talk about it. Okay, let's make it a conversation. Let's move with the cheese.